Look, I know what you're thinking. I know how this sounds coming from me. I can practically hear the collective sigh, the eye rolls, the judgment. And honestly, for a long time, I heard them too, echoing in my own head. But please, just for a moment, try to understand. Try to see it from my side. Because it's not as simple as girl screws up, girl gets what she deserves, nothing ever is. I blew it, all right? I utterly, spectacularly, set fire to the most stable, most loving relationship I had ever known, and then stood there, watching it burn, convinced it was just clearing the way for something better. And now I'm just standing in the ashes, wondering where the hell that better thing went. My name's Anya. I'm 32. And this is my story, the one where I became the villain. It started subtly, as these things always do, didn't it? A whisper of discontent, a faint unease beneath a veneer of absolute perfection. Liam and I, we were that couple. You know the one. The couple everyone envied, the one people pointed to when they talked about relationship goals. We'd been together for 10 years, practically since freshman year of college. We grew up together, molded each other, built a life that looked, on paper, like the absolute dream. We had the cute apartment, the stable jobs, the shared hobbies that everyone thought were just adorable. Our friends, our families, they adored us. They adored him. Liam was, well, he was a golden retriever in human form, bless his heart. Kind, patient, utterly devoted. He remembered my favorite coffee order, my allergy to cilantro, the specific way I liked my bath water. He'd leave me little notes, bring me flowers for no reason, listen to me rant about work for hours without once checking his phone. He was the epitome of the good guy. The reliable one. The one who would never, ever hurt you. And that, paradoxically, was the problem. His unwavering goodness, his relentless predictability, it started to feel like a cage. His attentiveness, which everyone else lauded as the pinnacle of true love, began to feel smothering. Like I couldn't breathe, couldn't move without him being right there, anticipating my every need. His stability, once a comfort, transformed into a crushing weight of routine, a terrifying glimpse into a future that felt beige. Vanilla. Flat. He loved me so simply, you see, with such a pure, uncomplicated devotion. And I, selfish, shallow me, I started to resent it. I resented its lack of drama, its lack of edge, its lack of that dizzying, heart-in-your-throat excitement you read about in books or saw in movies. We had our scheduled Friday night pizza and movie, our Sunday morning hikes, our annual beach trip. Our spontaneity was scheduled, our passion, a gentle simmer, never a roaring fire. I'd look at him across the dinner table, this kind, handsome man who loved me more than anything, and feel nothing. Or worse, a growing sense of dread. Was this it? Was this really all there was for me? The perfect, comfortable, soul-crushingly boring forever. I started to crave chaos. To feel something, anything, beyond that dull ache of complacency. I told myself it was a phase, a quarter-life crisis, a desperate attempt to feel alive before I settled into a permanent rut of suburban domesticity. Liam, of course, was oblivious. Or maybe he just chose to be. He trusted me implicitly, saw me as his rock, his future. And I used that trust as a shield, a justification, a convenient excuse to explore the dark corners of my own dissatisfaction. It was a selfish, rotten thing to do, I know. But at the time it felt like survival. A desperate clawing for air in a life that was slowly, steadily, suffocating me. And then Leo walked into my office. He was everything Liam wasn't. Where Liam was steady, Leo was volatile. Where Liam was quiet strength, Leo was a raging storm. He was new to the marketing team, with a cynical smirk and eyes that seemed to see right through your carefully constructed facade. He dressed in band t-shirts and ripped jeans, even in a corporate office, and he smoked those terrible-smelling clove cigarettes out back, talking about obscure art films and philosophical concepts that made my head spin. He had this way of looking at me, like I was the most fascinating puzzle he'd ever encountered, not just a pretty girl who always brought a Tupperware lunch to work. He challenged me, debated me, made me feel seen. Truly seen for the first time in years. like the wild, uninhibited version of me, the one Liam had unknowingly ironed out over a decade, was finally being acknowledged. The first transgression was so subtle, it barely registered as a sin. Just talking. Longer than necessary coffee breaks, texts exchanged late into the night, initially about work, then about everything else. Shared complaints about the mundane, the predictable, the people who just didn't get it. Leo and I, we got it. We spoke in a shorthand of dark humor and shared cynicism that felt exhilaratingly forbidden. He made me laugh, really laugh, that deep, unladylike cackle I used to have before I learned to be demure for Liam's family dinners. And then came the first touch. His hand brushing mine as he handed me a document. A lingering touch on my arm as he made a point. A secret, knowing glance across a crowded room. Each contact was an electric current, a jolt of pure, unadulterated thrill. It was like I'd been living in black and white, and suddenly, Leo was splashing vibrant, dangerous colors all over my world. It wasn't just physical, it was an emotional intimacy that felt like I was finally inhaling after holding my breath for far too long. And that feeling of being alive, of being seen, it was a drug. The pattern of deception began, a slow drip of lies that steadily turned into a torrential downpour. Lunch meetings became secret rendezvous in quiet cafes across town. Late nights at the office were covers for drinks at a dimly lit bar, where Leo and I would talk for hours, dissecting the universe, dissecting my life. My phone became an extension of my hand, carefully guarded, texts deleted before I even hit send on a reply. I learned to fabricate intricate stories about traffic, about work emergencies, about needing to visit my sick aunt in another town. My life became a labyrinth of little lies, each one adding a layer to the thrilling, dangerous game I was playing. And the more I lied, the more emboldened I became. Liam, bless his naive heart, just smiled. "You seem so much happier lately, Anya," he'd say, a genuine warmth in his voice. "I'm glad you're finding your spark again." He attributed it to my new job, to a new passion for painting I'd suddenly discovered. He was so trusting, so utterly without suspicion, that it almost felt like he was giving me permission. Or perhaps I interpreted his trust as a kind of freedom, a green light to explore this new, exciting path, because surely, if he knew, he'd stop me. And he wasn't stopping me, was he? This emotional fulfillment, this intoxicating rush, it was something I convinced myself I was owed. Something I deserved. Something Liam, in his quiet goodness, couldn't provide. So it was okay, right? It had to be. The lies escalated. The line between emotional intimacy and physical proximity blurred, then vanished entirely. Dinners turned into late-night drives, talks turned into stolen kisses, and eventually, the stolen kisses led to everything else. The first time, it was in a hotel room in a city 2 hours away, ostensibly for a work conference I was attending alone. The room felt like a different dimension, a space where Anya, the real Anya, truly existed. The one who wasn't stifled, wasn't predictable, wasn't Liam's perfect girlfriend. It was reckless, exhilarating, terrifying. And I did it again. And again. Each time, a new layer of guilt would prickle, but it was quickly subsumed by the overwhelming thrill, the feeling of being truly alive, truly desired in a way that felt raw and unfiltered. I found myself making comparisons constantly between Leo and Liam. Liam was safe. Leo was dangerous. Liam was comfortable. Leo was a revelation. I started to believe Leo was my true path, my true love, the one I was meant to be with. This passionate, intoxicating connection, this real love, was the truth. And the decade I'd spent with Liam, that stable, loving existence, that was the lie. That was the prison. I truly believed I was finally choosing happiness, choosing myself, choosing a life that truly resonated with the vibrant, passionate woman I was or thought I was. I began to speak about my future with Leo, albeit tentatively, still testing the waters. I'd sketch out little scenarios, talk about what it would be like if we were truly free, truly together. I romanticized every shared glance, every cynical joke, every stolen moment. I imagined a life of exhilarating spontaneity, intellectual conversations that never ended, and a love that was a constant, burning fire. I built this entire fantasy in my head, a vivid, compelling alternative to the beige reality I was living. And then he laughed. Leo, the chaotic, intense, dangerous man who had shattered my world wide open, he laughed. Not a cruel laugh, exactly, more a disbelieving, almost amused chuckle. He looked at me, his eyes devoid of the passion I'd projected onto them, and said, "Baby, come on. This was just a fling.
Fun, right?
You're complicated. And I'm just not looking for all that. I told you that from the start, my carefully constructed fantasy, the future I'd so vividly imagined, shattered around me like cheap glass. It was never real for him. I was a distraction, an exciting game. And I had gambled everything, absolutely everything, on a man who saw me as nothing more than a temporary thrill. The crash, when it came, was swift and utterly brutal. I hadn't confessed. Oh no, that would have required a level of courage, of decency, I simply didn't possess. Liam found out. And the truly terrifying part?
He had known for a while.
Weeks, maybe even months. He didn't scream, he didn't cry, he didn't even raise his voice. He just stood there after I came home from another late night at the office and looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize.
Cold.
Empty. He asked me to sit down. And then, without a single tremor in his voice, he laid out the evidence. Screenshots of texts not just from my phone, but from Leo's somehow. Location data from my phone, tracing my work conferences to hotels I'd checked into with Leo. Credit card statements for those hotel rooms, for dinners, for drinks. He had painstakingly, methodically, gathered every single piece of proof like a detective. He hadn't confronted me, hadn't begged me to stop, hadn't even given me a chance to lie my way out of it. He had simply watched, waited, and collected. And then, when he had enough, he just looked at me, completely empty, completely broken, and said, "Get out." There was no negotiation. No emotional begging. No, "Can we fix this?" Just a quiet, absolute finality that stripped me of all my defenses. He had already packed a bag for me, a small duffel with a few essentials. The locks were changed an hour later. My name was off the lease by the end of the week. Our joint accounts were split, and my portion was transferred to a new, solo account. He didn't respond to my frantic texts, my tearful voicemails. He blocked my number, blocked me on every social media platform, effectively erasing me from his life as thoroughly as if I had never existed. It was clinical, precise, devastating. And as for Leo, he vanished. Completely. Blocked my number, ignored my calls, removed me from his social media. The exciting, passionate man who had promised to show me a new world simply evaporated, leaving me to face the wreckage I'd created, utterly, irrevocably alone. He was a coward, a selfish, spineless, temporary distraction who couldn't handle the consequences of his own actions, much less mine. He had no interest in the fallout, only in the thrill of the chase. And I, the fool, had confused his selfishness for passion, his noncommittal nature for freedom. The social isolation was immediate and brutal. Our shared friends, the ones who had seen us as a unit for a decade, they didn't hesitate. They sided with Liam, every single one of them. My phone went silent. Invitations stopped coming. When I tried to reach out, to explain, to apologize, I was met with icy silence, or worse, curt messages telling me to leave Liam alone, that I'd done enough. My own family, usually so supportive, were clearly ashamed. My mother cried. My father just shook his head, unable to meet my eyes. My sister, who had always been my closest confidant, told me flat out that I'd ruined something precious, something most people only dreamed of having. "You had it all, Anya," she said, her voice laced with disgust. "And you threw it away for nothing." The silence was deafening. Worse than any shouting, any confrontation. It was the silence of complete and utter abandonment, the consequence of my own choices. I tried for a while to reach out to Liam. Just a text, an email, anything. To explain, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, for a chance to even just talk. Every attempt was met with a wall of absolute rejection. Sometimes his lawyer would respond. Sometimes his mother. Never him. Never again. And then the news started trickling back. At first, it was just whispers. Liam got a promotion. He started hitting the gym, lost some weight, seemed to be thriving. And then came the photos. From mutual friends' social media, from our old haunts. He looked lighter, happier. As if shedding me had been shedding a heavy cloak of responsibility he'd been carrying for years. He looked like he'd shed 10 years and 100 pounds of worry, all thanks to me. He was laughing in pictures, genuinely smiling, a spark in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years, a spark I had, in my self-centered blindness, believed I was the one stifling. My life, in contrast, deteriorated. The freedom I thought I was gaining was just emptiness. I lost my job shortly after, unable to focus, my performance plummeting. I moved into a tiny, overpriced studio apartment, alone, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd torched. The excitement, the passion, the more I had chased, it proved to be nothing but smoke and mirrors. My promised new life was empty, meaningless, and suffocating in a way Liam's love never was. I was adrift, clinging to the wreckage I'd made, watching him sail away into a brighter future. And then I saw her, Liam's mother, at the grocery store, of all places. My heart seized in my chest. She looked at me, her kind eyes now cold, hard. I braced myself for a shout, a scene. But she just looked at me, really looked at me, and her voice was a low, steady hum, like a wasp. "Anya," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth I had once known. "You broke my son's heart. He loved you more than you deserved, more than you could ever comprehend. You were selfish, cruel. And you know what? He's better off without you. Because, darling," she paused, her gaze piercing me, "you're just not wife material. Not for him. Not for anyone who deserves true, honest love. Not wife material," the words burrowed deep, festering. Because in that moment I knew, with a horrifying clarity, she was right. Not for him. Not for the man who was everything good and kind in the world. And maybe not for anyone who truly deserved love. Because what kind of person does that? What kind of person throws away a decade of unconditional love for a cheap thrill? For a man who is nothing but a shadow, a fleeting desire, a distraction from the uncomfortable truth that I was the problem, not Liam. A few months ago, a photo popped up on my old social media feed. A friend of a friend had accidentally tagged me in it. Liam. And a woman. She was beautiful, radiant, her hand resting on his arm, a diamond glittering on her ring finger. Then another photo, the same woman, a slight baby bump visible beneath her dress. They were smiling, a genuine, joyful, uncomplicated happiness that felt like a punch to the gut. They were building a life, the life I had so carelessly discarded, but with someone else, someone better, someone who appreciated the quiet, steady goodness I had so foolishly deemed boring. And still, sometimes I try to justify it. I had to, right? I couldn't live that life. I needed more. He couldn't provide it. He was too passive, too predictable, too good. Maybe I was just too much for him. Too complex, too chaotic. Leo was a coward, yes, but he showed me a glimpse of something. Something I still crave, even now, when all I feel is the bitter taste of loneliness. I don't regret choosing myself, I tell myself. I don't regret wanting more, wanting passion, wanting to truly live. But the truth? The truth is, I wanted it all. I wanted the stability, the comfort, the unwavering love of Liam, and the fleeting, dangerous thrill of Leo. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too, and I ended up with nothing but crumbs. Maybe I am just a bad person. Maybe I really did deserve this. But I learned so much, about myself, about what I really want, about the consequences of not being honest with yourself. And here I am, alone. Is this what more looks like? A hollow ache where my heart used to be, watching from the sidelines as the man I destroyed builds a beautiful, fulfilling life with someone else. All because I was too selfish to see what I had until it was gone. And it is gone. Forever.